Good morning. Ribhu Gita, Song of Ribhu, Chapter 31. The truth of non-duality explained with 64 examples. Okay. 1. In this discourse, I shall present to you the certain knowledge of the unparalleled, undivided Absolute, with exceedingly wonderful analogies that make for interesting listening and become the means for faultlessly grasping the sacred, direct experience of the Supreme Brahman. By listening to this rare exposition, one can attain true liberation quickly. It is the truth, it is the truth. The world exists not. Concepts or fixed ideas and notions, imaginations, doubts exist not in the least. The eternal blissful Brahman is only the changeless, perpetual, established truth. The non-dual Brahman alone is the unattached, the afflictionless, the undecaying, and the undivided. There is not the least of any concept of duality. There is not an iota of action to be performed here. 3. Apart from the nature of the indivisible Brahman, there can never be a concept of the world. Apart from the substratum of the knowledge of the nature of Brahman, there is never the slightest appearance of this visible world. Apart from the whole and perfectly full Brahman, there is never anything like the world or such. To drive home this truth to you in depth, we shall give now diverse examples. 4. The world and all illusion would be real if anyone would be afraid of the words of the son of a barren woman. The world would be real if anyone is killed as if by an arrow, by a horn blown by a hunter on a hill. The world would be real if the horns of a horse would become real and charge at something. When inquired into thoroughly, there is no world at all. The clear Supreme Brahman is the only reality. 5. The sky and such would all be real if one could obtain satisfaction by drinking from the waters of a mirage. The world, as it is called, would be real if the city of the Gandharvas, the mythical celestial beings, in the sky, like castles in the air, would be a reality. The world would be real if the blue color of the sky were a reality. When inquired into thoroughly, there is no world at all. The Supreme Brahman of the nature of awareness is the only reality. 6. The world would be real if the silver appearing in a shell could provide real ornaments for anyone. The world would be real if any people died of snakebite from the illusory rope serpent. The world would be real if anyone anywhere could enjoy the fragrance of the imaginary flower in the sky. When inquired into deeply, there is no world at all. The Supreme Brahman of the nature of knowledge is the only reality. 7. If the tongues of flame of a leaping fire would be snuffed out by oblations of ghee, the world would be real. If a mass of darkness could be illumined by the picture of a lamp, the world would be real. If a massive tree were to grow without a seed, the world would be real. If inquired into steadfastly, there's no world at all. The all-pervasive Brahman is the only reality. 8. If the trunk of a plantain tree could be the fuel for anyone for cooking a meal, the world would be real. If fools with fascination for the body could enjoy undiminishing happiness, the world would be real. If the mean-minded were to appreciate the fairness of mind of those wiser, the world would be real. If inquired into firmly, there is no world at all. The one nature which exists, the Supreme Brahman, is the only reality. 9. If there could be effective cooking by a girl born today, the world would be real. If anyone could, in dalliance also with her, derive enjoyment, then the world would be real. If the waters of the river Sindhu were to be dried up by the dust of the world would be real. If inquired into thoroughly, there is no world at all. The Supreme Brahman of the nature of ourselves is the only reality. 10. If darkness remains unaffected by the presence of the sun, the world would be real. If iron is not transmuted into gold by the correct formula of the alchemist, the world would be real. I guess that should be if iron is transmuted into gold by the correct formula of the alchemist, the world would be real. If a person who died a month ago is seen to return in joy, the world would be real. If inquired into correctly, there is no world at all. The Supreme Brahman, transcending all attributes, is the only reality. 11. If a sumptuous feast with delicacies could be obtained in the midst of the dense forest on the summit of the Vindhya mountain, the world would be real. If the milk that had been squeezed earlier out of a cow would flow back into the teats, the world would be real. If the churned buttermilk could return to the nature of milk, the world would be real. If inquired into intelligently, there is no world at all. The perfectly full Supreme Brahman is the only reality. 12. If anyone could easily shake the Meru mountain with the tendrils of a lotus, the world would be real. If anyone could bind the waters of the ocean with a girdle of waves, the world would be real. If anyone could bind a mad elephant with the hairs of a tortoise, the world would be real. If inquired into courageously, there is no world at all. The Supreme Brahman, transcending the three qualities, is the only reality. 13. If a towering mountain can be tossed about by an exhaled breath, the world would be real. If the mountain Meru could plummet down to settle on a lotus seed, the world would be real. If a lotus could grow in a raging fire, the world would be real. If inquired into constantly, there's no world at all. The supreme Brahman of undivided nature is the only reality. 14. If a tiny mosquito could quickly overcome a lion and be victorious, the world would be real. If a bee could swallow the Meru mountain like a fruit and spit it back, the world would be real. If the macrocosm could be within the belly of an atom, the world would be real. If inquired into without blemish, there is no world at all. The great supreme Brahman is the only reality. 15. If a dream object continued to exist unaffected in the waking state, the world would be real. If the swift flowing current of a river would stop and be motionless, the world would be real. If a man born blind could efficiently judge the qualities of a gem, the world would be real. If inquired into without any other thoughts, there is no world at all. The supreme Brahman of undivided nature is the only reality. 16. If a thoroughly fried seed could be the source of the growth of a tree, the world would be real. If a mad elephant could be killed by the illusory horns of a hare, the world would be real. If indigent persons could enjoy the pleasures of the affluent, the world would be real. If inquired into correctly, there is no world at all. The supreme Brahman, without a doubt, is the only reality. 17. If the crow could walk the charming swan step, the world would be real. If the deer in the Vindhya forest could fight in equal combat the lion of the mountains, the world would be real. If Rahu, the shadow planet of the eclipse, could be sighted anywhere except in conjunction with the moon and the sun, the world would be real. If inquired into knowledgeably, there is no world at all. The supreme Brahman, which is all consciousness, is the only reality. If a barren woman conceives and the fetus acquires name and form, the world would be real. If a son is properly born to a eunuch and grows up, the world would be real. If he, the son born of a eunuch, also has actual sexual enjoyment of women, the world would be real. If inquired into steadfastly, there is no world at all. The pure supreme Brahman is the only reality. 19. If a lion were to be born out of a seed of a dog and shine with valor, the world would be real. If further the waters of the ocean would be drunk by that dog, and the whole wide ocean would thus be dried up, the world would be real. If a figure of a lady hewn out of wood as a transient substitute for a stone sculpture should feast on succulent food, the world would be real. If inquired into with an intent mind, there is no world at all. The blemishless Supreme Brahman is the only reality. 20. If, without a cause, the sky would crash down among the people, the world would be real. If the huge sky would plummet down to the earth and fly up again, the world would be real. If anyone should adorn himself with the flowers in the sky and captivate courtesans, the world would be real. If inquired into directly, there is no world at all. The partless Supreme Brahman is the only reality. 21. Should anyone tie up the vacuous sky with a reel of rope, the world would be real. Should the reflected image of the formless sky be a real object, the world would be real. Should an elephant be born from the womb of a lowly goat, the world would be real. When inquired into knowledgeably, there is no world at all. The Supreme Brahman, a mass of knowledge, is the only reality. 22. Should people enjoy promenading on a piece of ground treacherous with mire, the world would be real. Should an image in a mirror be permanently established, the world would be real. Should cotton, thrown into the flames, become fireproof and not turn to ashes, the world would be real. If inquired into seriously, there is no world at all. The Supreme Brahman, without a second, is the only reality. 23. Should confirmed fools comprehend the greatness of an exalted thing, the world would be real. Should the Supreme Brahman shine apart from the cosmos, the world would be real. Should there be a liberation apart from the undivided supreme knowledge, the world would be real. If inquired into continuously, there is no world at all. The Supreme Brahman, which is without duality, is the only reality. 24. If there be any meaning conveyed by the Vedas except the non-dual Brahman, the world would be real. If the misery of repetitious births and deaths is destroyed by anything except true knowledge, the world would be real. If the mind remains motionless without any awareness of the highest yoga, the world would be real. If inquired into truly, there is no world at all. The Supreme Brahman, which is the truth, is the only reality. 25. If there be anyone who has obtained enjoyment or liberation without the grace of the Supreme Shiva, the world would be real. If inquired into without blemish, there is no world at all. The only thing that exists eternally is the Supreme Brahman, as told by the Supreme Shiva, the embodiment of grace. I have thus expounded this to you, with 64 examples, that the Supreme, with no second, is the only truth. 26. If there is pursuit of the truth in this manner, there is no world, individuals, or the Supreme. Whatever is seen as divided, on inquiry, will turn out to be not a bit different from Brahman. Is there anything except thread when cloth is analyzed? Is there any other evaluation except as earth when a pot is analyzed? 27. Hence, there is not a trace of duality, nor non-duality, nor anything apart. The only perfectly full reality that exists is the Supreme Brahman, the mass of knowledge. Attaining the partless, undivided knowledge that I indeed am the undifferentiated Supreme Brahman, and being rid of the adverse miseries of the worldly existence, you yourself become the exalted, undivided Supreme Nature. 28. If the appearance of the world, which is a consequence of concepts, affects you in the least, immediately eliminate those by considering all this as the partless Supreme Brahman alone, and knowing I am that Brahman. If the deadly disease of mind flares up still, destroy it by taking the wonderful medicine of meditation on the undivided Supreme Brahman alone. 29. If any illusions of difference arise in the mind due to delusion, sweep them aside immediately by contemplation of the pure Supreme Brahman and be your own self. If due to ignorance the body and such appear as the self, be rid of this ignorance at once by establishing yourself in the contemplation of the self that is the expanse of consciousness, and be of your own true nature. 30. If the evil adversary, the ego, enervates and envelops you, instantly rend it asunder by the sword of contemplation, I am Brahman, and abide in your own nature. If the hard knots of mind harass you, with courage cut through them in a moment, with the discus of the contemplation of the Supreme, and be established in your natural self. 31. If the illusion that the body and such are I persists, immediately kill this illusion with the conviction that I am the one perfectly full absolute. If the ghost of the non-self appears, quickly drive it away by the mantra of contemplating the self, and shine as the self of immaculate nature. 32. Even if the ghost of diverse doubts assails and frightens you, lay the ghost of doubt to rest fearlessly by the mantra of the contemplation of the Absolute. If the fickle phantom of duality follows you any further, subdue it today undaunted by the sacred ashes of non-dual meditation, and remain as the powerful one. 33. They who, with all their attention, listen daily to the certitude of the One Absolute, by the endless strategies here described, will attain complete Brahman knowledge, and rid of all attachments, become the Supreme themselves. There's not the least doubt in what has been said. This is the truth. Is there ever any doubt at all about what the omniscient Sambhamurti Shiva has pronounced? 34. Only those who have realized as their own selves the Supreme Shiva, who is the creator, preserver, and destroyer of all, who remains without an atom of difference, unattached, all complete, and perfectly full, the peaceful existence, knowledge, bliss, will become that Supreme Shiva, who is undivided and blissful. Thus did the sage Ribhu propound to Nidaga the unparalleled Supreme Reality. 35. It is the undivided form of the Lord of Gods in a state of supreme joyous dance that proclaims the certitude of the One Supreme by a string of analogies for the understanding of all, and that the supreme reality, which is existence, knowledge, bliss, is ever changeless, and that this world and such never exist. And that concludes chapter number 31. Is that right? Yes, chapter 31. So have a good day, everybody. Bye bye.